Israel was right to ignore the West. These are the words of Douglas Murray in a new article, and I want to read to you his words. But we've seen throughout the last year, when Israel was about to go into Rafah, because they had to get rid of those Hamas units, those Hamas battalions, we had Western leaders, including the president, saying, don't do it, it's going to be a humanitarian catastrophe, even threatening to withhold weapons. Shamefully, President Biden and others suggested that. But Israel did what she had to do, and there are actually very few non-combatants that were killed in going into Rafah, and they were able to get rid of those Hamas battalions. Likewise with Lebanon, Hezbollah, don't escalate the situation, or Israel, don't respond to Iran after all those missile attacks. Just let's have a ceasefire. Israel's enemies are allowed to do what they want, but then when Israel responds to get rid of the threat, don't, it's going to escalate. And Israel has shown in the last few months, but particularly in the last few weeks, that she should not be succumbing to all this pressure, and they should be very steadily and courageously continuing the fight. These are the words of Douglas Murray in The Spectator. He said, "There are sources in the Jewish tradition that warn against exultation at the downfall of one's enemies. But I'm not Jewish, and so I have exulted greatly these past 2 weeks." If you follow most of the British media, you may well think that the past year involves the following events. Israel attacks Hamas. Israel invaded Lebanon. Israel bombed Yemen. Oh, and someone left a bomb in a room in Tehran that killed the peaceful Palestinian leader Ismail Haniyeh. Of course, all of this is an absolute inversion of the truth. Hamas invaded Israel, so Israel attacked Hamas. Hezbollah has spent the past year sending thousands of rockets into Israel, so Israel has responded by destroying Hezbollah. The Houthis in Yemen, now so beloved of the demonstrators in the UK, sent missiles and drones hundreds of miles to attack Israel. So Israel bombed the Houthis' arms stores in Yemen. And Hamas leader Haniyeh, who was born under Egyptian rule and died in Tehran, never brought the Palestinian people anything but misery. On the 7th of October last year, Israel was surprised by a brigade-sized invasion of terrorists into its territory. These terrorists raped, murdered and burned their way as far inside Israel as they could get. How this intelligence and military failure was possible is something that Israelis still have to work out. But the first answer is because they face a fanatical ideological opponent which wants to destroy them. Hezbollah joined in the action on the 8th of October. All these attacks were funded and orchestrated by the revolutionary Islamic government in Iran, which as I write this is sending hundreds of ballistic missiles at Israel from Iran. Strikes that have so far proved a failure. Hamas still holds 100 Israeli hostages inside Gaza, but the Israeli government has managed to bring half the hostages home already. For many people in the first days of the war, it seemed impossible that even one hostage would be able to come back to their families alive. So this is no mean feat in itself. Aside from saving the hostages, the other most important thing for Israel has been to strike and destroy the proxy armies of Iran who wish to make the whole of Israel unlivable for Jews. All this time, the governments in Britain and America have given the Israelis advice, which mercifully they did not listen to. Earlier this year, Kamala Harris warned that the IDF shouldn't go into Hamas' Gaza stronghold in Rafah. As she wisely said, "I've studied the maps." Fortunately, the Israelis did not listen to Kamala's beginner's guide to Rafah. They went into the Hamas stronghold, continued to search for the hostages, continued to kill Hamas's leadership, and continued to destroy the rocket and other ammunition stores that Hamas has built up for 18 years. Next came the complete destruction of Hezbollah, which has the blood of hundreds of Americans and other nationals on its hands, as well as that of Israelis. Not to mention the fact that this foreign army of Iran has immiserated Lebanon for 40 years. The Christians of that country have dwindled to a minority as these Shiite fundamentalists have taken a once thriving country and turned it into yet another Ayatollah-dominated hellhole. This, in a series of attacks, which historians are already studying, everything went kaboom for Hezbollah. First, thousands of its operatives were targeted all over Lebanon and Syria. Having decided that phones were not a safe means of communication, the terrorists had recently reverted to pagers. But someone managed to get into the supply chain, put a small amount of explosive in every Hezbollah device, and then blew the balls off the people who were hoping to destroy their neighbours. Then Hezbollah walkie-talkies also suddenly detonated. Much of the Hezbollah's leadership, including those involved in the killing of 241 American Marines in their barracks in Beirut in 1983, met up in person to discuss all this, during which they were too killed in a strike. The British and American governments, among others, had told the Israelis that there should be no escalation, but fortunately they weren't listened to. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had gone to New York to address the various despots and kleptocrats on First Avenue, so the ultimate leader of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, thought that this would be a safe moment to get together with the few remaining members of his organisation. Before going on stage in New York and observing the traditional walkout of diplomats, Netanyahu ordered the final strike. While he was up there, Hassan Nasrallah went to meet his maker. By this point, there is nobody left in Hezbollah. They're all gone. All of their leadership, every one of their commanders, while their lower-level operatives are trying to get their testicles reattached in the hospitals of Beirut. It'll be wall-to-wall wreath-laying for the Hamas and Hezbollah fanboys. But there it is. The wisdom of the international community is that ceasefires are always desirable, that negotiated settlements are always to be desired, and that violence is never the answer. As so often, these wise international voices have no idea what they are talking about. Israel's enemies have spent the past year trying to destroy it, as they have so many times before, but it is they who have gone to the dust, with the regime in Tehran the only thing that is, for the time being, still standing. Absent that terror regime, and not just Israel but the whole of the Middle East has a bright future. Sometimes you need war to make peace. Sometimes there is a price to pay for trying to finish the work of Adolf Hitler. Who knew? As always, Douglas says what so many of us are feeling, and I think what's so important to appreciate as well is not just that Israel have acted so brilliantly in getting Hania and Tehran in the pager attacks and getting Hezbollah. Not just that, but understanding that they were told that this is impossible. To get Hezbollah in Lebanon, we were told that experts said this is going to be such a bloody war. We'd be looking at thousands upon thousands of Israelis dying. Now look, we don't know what tomorrow brings. We don't know how the war with Hezbollah is going to end. But we were told that there are hundreds of thousands of rockets aimed at Israel, and that for Israel to have to get rid of Hezbollah, it's going to be a few weeks of an extreme bloodbath, basically. And there's going to be a lot of non-combatants on the Lebanese side as well that are going to have to die, because Israel's going to basically have to carpet bomb if that's what's good it's going to come to. And what Israel did by somehow getting into that supply chain of those pagers and walkie-talkies that they were using to avoid Israeli surveillance, ironically, it's astounding. This is, I think, even greater than the operation in Entebbe. And if you don't know about that was done in the 70s, look it up, what Israel did. It was incredible, hostage rescue operation. But this is on that level. And before we say, oh yeah, well, they were just smart, do you know how many things would have to go right for this to happen? And if the slightest thing goes wrong, then their cover is blown or the operation doesn't work and you're back to square one. But also, we've seen miracles with regard to what's happened in Iran, where Iran were, just a few days ago, lobbing over 100 ballistic missiles at Israel. Who did they kill? They killed one Arab that was from Gaza, that was now living, I think it was in Jenin, a Palestinian. I want to read to you the words of Hillel Fuld, who spoke about this. He said, "I really don't think you understand the absolute miracles that we witnessed last night here in Israel. In fact, I'm sure you don't. Let's break this down. Israel has 3 air defense systems, each one of them a technological wonder, and that's not me saying it. That's Dr. Gold, who basically invented the Iron Dome, who told me that. The level and sophistication of the Iron Dome is simply unparalleled. But the Iron Dome only knows how to detonate short-range rockets or missiles within a 70-kilometer range, give or take. Then Israel has the David Sling system. That knows how to deal with mid-range missiles up to approximately 300 kilometers. Then we have the Arrow system that literally detonates missiles that can fly outside of the Earth's atmosphere, that has a range of about 2,400 kilometers. Last night, and this was obviously a few nights ago now, as Iran rained down ballistic missiles on Israel, all 3 defense systems were activated and implemented to perfection. The chances of all of these incredibly complex systems working in unison as flawlessly as they did last night are basically non-existent. If one thing went wrong, if one of those ballistic missiles hit an apartment building, a shopping centre, or an army base, we would now be burying hundreds of Israelis. And all of that is not even the biggest miracle. A few hours ago, I got a WhatsApp message from a good friend who is a senior executive at Microsoft and who wasn't exactly a God-fearing Jew. Until yesterday. Here is what he wrote to me. If you're looking for miracles, man, last night I started believing. Missiles hit all around me, but none of them hit my house, or any house for that matter. He elaborated some more and shared info about the missiles that he watched land just meters away from very strategic places in Israel, to say the least. Each one of those defense systems is in and of itself pretty miraculous. But what is even more insane is the low casualty numbers from the rockets and missiles that were not intercepted. Where did those missiles go? I'll tell you where. They landed in sand, in water, and in empty spaces. Have you been to Israel? It's a microscopic country. What empty spaces? What are these empty spaces? How did hundreds of Iranian ballistic missiles all either get detonated by miraculous systems or totally miss their mark and land in empty spaces, causing zero casualties and minimal damage? How? Listen, I get it. This thought process begs the question, where was God during the horrible terrorist attack yesterday? Where was he on October 7th? Where was he during the Holocaust? All valid questions that require a very serious, nuanced conversation. But if you know anything about what had to happen last night and throughout this war in general, for such a low number of casualties, you'll know what we witnessed last night was the equivalent of God splitting the sea right before our eyes. Guess what? When God split the sea, there were those who didn't believe it was a miracle and didn't jump in. And there were also those who felt the need to explain it naturally. Okay, that's fine. You don't want to call yesterday an act of God? That's your choice. But like my Microsoft friend, if you look at these events objectively, you'd have a really hard time seeing those hundreds of deadly missiles land in empty spaces and not see the hand of God. Last night was an incredible display of the collaboration between two of the powers that protect the Jewish people, the IDF and Hashem. Last night will go down in history right alongside many of Israel's accomplishments in this war, including the beepers and the unprecedented low ratio between combatant and civilian, as will a military operation the likes of which the world has never seen, ever. Last night will be analysed by the military strategists and experts for generations. Last night we witnessed history. Last night we witnessed open miracles. Last night we witnessed God in all his glory, watching over his children. It's powerful stuff. Like Douglas was saying, Israel has shown that she should ignore the nonsense, short-termist, moral relativist, really childish lecturers from the West, and those who shame Israel and those who tell her to stop and just to be a good little boy in the corner. No, Israel has shown that, and really the government has shown, that they need to not succumb to the pressure and do whatever it is they need to do to protect their people and eliminate the security threats. And what do we see is that God tells us he'll bless us when we do that. When we do what is actually moral, what he says what's moral, which is that when someone comes to strike you to kill you, you kill them first. When you do that, far from it being something that will escalate and will risk, creating a situation that's even more dangerous for you, actually, he will partner with us in protecting us. That's what he says he will do. And that's exactly right with what Hillel says, where he says that it's a collaboration of two powers, or two people, really. Two beings, right? God seeks to partner with us in making this world good and godly. He doesn't want to do it all himself. So he says, you put in your effort, you do your part, and I will do my part as well, and together we'll do this. The Torah says more often than anything else, do not fear. God says, don't fear. Together, if you are strong, if you are courageous, if you do what you need to do to protect your people, which is the moral thing, then that is what will grant us blessing. We should not fear. As Douglas says, Israel has been vindicated. She should ignore the people that are telling her, don't do what you need to do to protect your people. Instead, they should do whatever they need to do and understand that any casualties in this are the result the moral responsibility, rather, of those who are seeking to annihilate her. This is moral clarity, and we need more of it. If you've made it so far in this video, I have a request for you. JTV has been having a really big impact in spreading the truth about Israel and creating positive associations with the Jewish people, Judaism, and Israel. We've really grown a lot, particularly in the last year, and we're having a really significant impact, both for Jews and non-Jews. But I really want to take JTV to the next level so we can start to compete with the other big online media beasts that are often peddling anti-Israel content. And the way we're going to do that is to scale even faster. So I'd love to build a team where we have other presenters doing shows like me. Let's start doing documentaries, supplementary content, animated content, etc., etc. And to do that, I'd like to build a bit of a team. So what we're going to do is we're going to do one fundraising day, just one, where we try and build up some funding in order to fund such a team. Now, to do that, it's going to obviously require people to get involved. And I'm wondering if you would consider, if you're watching JTV content and appreciate what we do and want to help partner with us in taking this to the next level and spreading the truth farther and wider than ever before, I wonder if you'd consider partnering with us simply by running a page, a mini page on the fundraiser that we do, where you just reach out to your contacts on that day that we choose to fundraise and see if they'll all chip in. If you'd be up for doing that, of which I would be so grateful, then please click on the Google form link in the video description of this video, where you can simply just put in a few contact details. It'll be a very small commitment, as I say, literally just one day that we'll all agree upon as a collective community. But the impact is going to be so big. There's such strength in numbers. If we all pull together and do this, we can take this to the next level. And as I say, all of us can partner together in bringing and spreading the truth to the whole world. So please do consider clicking on that link, filling in the form, and I'll be in touch very soon to talk about the next steps. Small commitment, but a big impact. Hi, thank you so much for watching. To watch another one, click here. To stay up to date with all our content, click here to subscribe. And if you're able to, you can help support JTV to grow and grow by clicking join below this video, where you can become a member and get perks including early access to videos and private live discussions with me. But most of all, you'll be partnering with us on our mission to change the world.